So when I was growing up, my mother was a college counselor, and she used to come back with all these horror stories of people, of these college students who got, a little too drunk and misbehaved to the point where they had to seek counseling. And so, instead of getting these, great morals of, don't get drunk and have your friends throw you in a snowdrift, the only thing I got from it was Thirsty Thursday, which is you get, an extra Friday, because you don't have a Friday morning class, you go out on Thursday and have a lot of fun, and then you go out on Friday and have a lot of fun, and so you get like an extra, it's great. So my first week at college, I'm like, this is gonna be awesome. I am going out for Thirsty Thursday, woo, yeah, let's go. So I get everybody together, we go to the frat house across the street, and we get a beer. And I have to mention that in high school, me and my friends didn't need to drink to have a good time, which I'm sure you all know, like that's not true. And I found out later that's not true. And but as you can tell, someone who's very new to drinking cannot drink Milwaukee's Best very quickly. Guess it's not very good. So I in the span of an hour and a half, I have 2, and everyone's very proud of me for getting through 2 beers. Meanwhile, my roommate, who I've known for less than a week, has had 10. So I don't even notice that he's drunk until we get back to the floor, and he stops speaking English, and he only speaks high school level German for about an hour. So I decide, hey, he's having fun. One day I will get there. I will be able to drink 10 Milwaukee's Best. I don't think that ever happened. But, good for him. He's just going to go caper about the halls and make new friends, and that's fine. So meanwhile, I'm not drunk. And for my late class tomorrow that I get to sleep in for and I'm very excited about, I actually have my first reading assignment of, college. And I'm like, it's a reading assignment for college. High school I was like, reading. Come on. And the textbook, you're supposed to teach me this. Why am I reading the textbook? There's a lot of teachers here, aren't there? But college, I'm like, it's a new ball game, they expect a lot more from you, and I don't want to start off on the wrong foot, so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get my book out, my roommate's not here, he's being drunk elsewhere, so I get a good chance to read this, so crack open the textbook, sit down, it's like, what is sociology? Sociology, After 10 minutes, I get to the end of page 1, and that was not pleasant. So, all of a sudden, the kid down the hall, Dexter, shows up at my door, and he's like, are you Dan's roommate? And I'm like, Dan with the drunk kid speaking German. He's like, yes, that's the one. And I'm like, yeah, that is my roommate. And so Dexter's like, you need to come with me. I'm like, what? And he's like, I'll explain. So I go with him, and Dexter, apparently, who saw this whole thing happen, Dan is on a full sprint down the hall, and Jess, who's down the hall, is like, hey Dan, what are you doing? And he goes, what? And falls flat on his face. And so Dexter's like, oh no, this is bad. And so he comes, gets me, and I find Dan in somebody's room. And of course I'm like, Dan? He's like, Guten Tag. And so, I'm like, hey, Dexter says you hurt your foot. He's like, nah, it's fine, don't worry about it. And I'm like, well, can we take a look at it? He's like, nah. And I was like, Dexter's a pre-med major, and he really would like to just get some practice in, being a pre-med, he's got to, and he's like, oh, all right. So he takes his shoe off, and there's a fist under his foot. It's this big. I mean, it is gross. And so I'm like, Dan, I think you need to go to bed. So we take all of the pre-med majors somehow come together and have a summit as to what to do about Dan's foot. So we get him back to the room. His foot is like the size of a baseball now. I'm like, okay, so we get ice pack on his foot, put him to bed. I'm like, all right, great. So I sit down, take the book out, put it down, go to get. I'm like, I gotta get a drink of water, So I meet some people out on the floor, and I'm like, this is really tough for me to just have this roommate. I haven't known him for this long, and should I take him to the hospital? He seems really injured, but then he could get in trouble because he's drunk. I don't know. I'm really brave for having to put up with all this, trauma and everything. And then the person I'm talking to, isn't that him right there? And I turn around, and he's sprinting out of the room around the corner. I'm like, damn it! So I run out of and I run after him, and he's absent. I'm like, where did he go? So I'm peeking my head into the rooms, and I see my friend Lauren, and she's like, is this your roommate? And I'm like, And so before I can, even get in there and like, hi there, I see Dan. His foot is now the size of a grapefruit. And he's rolling around on Lauren's roommate, Sarah's bed. Now, Sarah's still out having fun, and Dan doesn't know where she is. And so Dan goes, "Where's Sarah? I love Sarah. I am in love with her." And I'm like, "Dan, you need to go to bed again." And Lauren's like, "Get him out of here." So I'm like, "Okay." And, so I take him back to the room. He's like, "I love Sarah." Apparently they had a moment earlier that month, or week, or whatever, I don't know. So, putting Dan to bed again, I find a shoelace. I tie the ice pack onto his foot, and he's like, and still going on about Sarah. I take both of our desk chairs and push them up against his bed, creating a crib so he no longer can escape. Now, he's still rolling around, and as I'm like, finally, I'm like, "Okay, Dan, just go to bed." Who should show up at the door but Sarah? And I'm like, "Hi, Sarah. Somebody here really likes you." So Dan's like, "Is that Sarah, Ryan? Is that Sarah? I love her. Tell her I love her." And I'm like, "You can tell her yourself. She's right here." And so Sarah's the sweetheart, and she's like, "Dan, I've only known you for, a month. Like, probably not love, maybe something else." And so, Dan falls asleep. Sarah goes, I take my book, and I'm like, forget it. I'm not even going to try to read this. So I go into class the next morning, and my teacher's like, "So, what did everybody think of the reading? Ryan, is it right?" "Yeah, what did you think?" And I'm like, "Sir, I didn't read the book last night because my roommate broke his foot." And he gives me this look like, "Are you serious? Like, this is college, dude. Pick up your excuses." And this girl behind me goes, "Oh, you're Dan's roommate." I'm like, "Yes, I am. How's his foot?" "It's getting better." Thank you.